Hey there, welcome back to Becky, Amio Horse Training. And this is Gamblers Kola, or affectionately known as Pepsi. He's by Watch Joe Gamble. He's out of Harlan Sprite, and she is a daughter of Harlan's Top Gun. He was bred and raised by HM Quarter Horses of scenic South Dakota, and in the past 11 years I've had the opportunity to ride an awful lot of horses for them, and I have gotten the opportunity to start Harlan Sprite, and I got to ride Harlan's Top Gun, and I've ridden an awful lot of Harlan's Top Guns. So I know this pedigree pretty well, I know how they're going to ride, and I know their disposition pretty well. Now I decided to ride this colt out for the first time on his second ride for several reasons. I want to put emphasis on that. This is this colt's second ride out in the pasture in some pretty big wide open country, and I chose to take all my dogs with me, so we have lots of distractions going on. So for one, this colt lacked a little bit of forward motion, and the reason is because this colt was raised out. He was raised out in the Badlands of South Dakota, and you know, he has managed to keep himself safe and, you know, scar-free in the first 2 years of his life, so he makes pretty good choices already. And when they lack a little forward inside that, you know, 50-60 foot round pen, you want to get him out. And once you have a good emergency stop on one of these guys, in which if you watched his first ride video, this guy has an outstanding emergency stop. He's really soft in the face. He wants to give his head around and be pretty kind overall. And so I'm pretty confident that I can take this colt out and try to get him going in a straight line on a section and get him moving forward for me. So one of the misconceptions about horses in general is that they're balanced. And I think we see a lot of accidents and wrecks and miscommunications because of their lack of balance and muscle strength. And we'll see that a lot in this colt just in this trip out to the pasture. He doesn't have a fence to balance on. He doesn't have that crutch. And you really find out what you have when you go out into wide open spaces without a fence line. Now, there is a fence line over there where there's the definition between the green and the yellow crop there. So that is another pasture over there, and I'm trying to keep him off that fence line for this reason, wide open space here. And as I start to speed him up here in his trot, I'm gonna ask him for the lope, and he's handling these dogs really well. Teddy is always out in front there harassing them, and then the other two are bird hunting dogs, and they're gonna be flushing up birds all the time. So I go to pick him up in a lope, and we see this colt kind of go off in different directions. He's kind of going off to the left. I have to bring him back to the right to get him to straighten up to take a lead. Now, when I first go out on them, I try really hard to get them to pick up both leads when I go out to make sure they're aware that we've picked up both of them. I certainly do not allow them to crossfire out here. I will break them down if they crossfire. But in this colt's case, because he's lacking a little bit of forward, I'm just trying to get him to lope out. I'm not going to get after him if he doesn't pick up the lead that I ask for. I don't think he's advanced enough in his education to know better at this point. You know, if we don't have the round pen helping him set him up, we're just going to kind of go with whatever he gives me. And you can kind of see me here pulling him back to the right. You see how he's lost his balance there on this straight line? And this is what I think folks run into when they go to do further education with horses. They don't realize that the horse hasn't been educated and it hasn't had the muscle memory and the muscle conditioning to hold itself together. And so as a rider, it's our job to hold them together. And so in this colt's case, when he kind of loses his balance, he just kind of wants to come to a stop. Now, horses do several different things when they lose their balance. They'll want to come to a stop, they speed up, or they'll even buck. And our job is to figure out what kind of a horse they are and help them when they lose their balance. So in this case, this colt wants to slow down and stop when he loses his balance. He loses his forward motion. And you see us struggle back and forth here a couple of times before we take that lope. It's not because of the dog, I promise you guys that. She's kind of far enough out ahead of him. She's not bothering him. It's just trying to find his balance to take that lead when he takes off. And once he gets his lead, he kind of wants to propel himself forward in a straighter line because he has enough strength in his hind end, but to initially take off, he's kind of all over the place like he's drunk a little bit. Okay, so now I'm in the home stretch of this pasture. This pasture is a 2-mile square and it's relatively flat. And so it makes for a really good first-time learning experience for them. And that's what this is all about, is just giving them a good experience for their first ride out. Also, if we were to have an accident or a big spook, I have relatively flat ground to handle it on. If you guys have been watching my videos for any period of time, when I ride out to the creek pasture, there's quite a bit of hills out there. And, you know, it's always tough handling somebody that wants to spook that's not real educated when you're on the side of a hill. And so in this case, you know, what I'm looking for is giving this guy a great experience. I'm checking to see how reasonable he wants to be, how good-minded he wants to be, how he handles being out in big country, how he handles the dogs. He's riding alongside a 4-wheeler right now. JD's videoing me with this 4-wheeler. So this Colt is super, super good-minded. And from the start, he really wants to get along. And it's just going to be really, really fun and rewarding from here on out working with him. You know, just happy to be out, ears forward, cruising along at a nice jogging pace. He doesn't want to go super fast. I'm not having to pedal him along. And this is a Colt that we, you know, in his first ride, JD had to help me get him moving forward a little bit because he was struggling with those walls and the rails of the round pen. So I'm going to spend quite a little time out here in the pasture with him for his first quote-unquote 30 rides and get him accustomed to moving out. And then once he gets more confident moving out, gains a little bit more balance, then I'll go back to the arena or back to the round pen and start really kind of training on a little bit and teaching him some skills and some footwork. But for now, I'm pretty excited with how this ride is going. I'm pretty excited that we got all this video footage for you guys. I never anticipated getting this much. I was looking to just get kind of tiny little clips for HM quarter horses so they had it, but you know, riding along really, really nice with the dogs. And I'm up against time here, folks. It's only a matter of time before the snow flies and I'm not going to be able to work anymore, and I'll have to take this Colt inside. So I really need to get him rode out as much as I possibly can. As we head back home, I'm going to walk him and I'm going to reflect on what a great experience this was for him, riding out with dogs and a 4-wheeler, crossing the road, leaving the main ranch and riding quietly and confidently away from all of his friends in wide open spaces. Couldn't ask for a better first ride out with this Colt. And you know, he's even handling these trees right here. The hunting dogs are flushing birds out all the time out of those trees. He's making good choices as I walk across the road here. Super experience for this Colt. Now it's time to start challenging him a little bit. I sure appreciate you guys watching, and thanks for hanging in there with me. Have a great rest of your day.